Right now, Russia has exploded from within. The Bashkirs are marching on the Kremlin. The unbelievable has happened, an uprising in the very heart of the Russian Federation. The resistance is gaining momentum. Putin is under catastrophic pressure. No one expected this. Urgent! The front has been torn apart. The AFU have trapped the enemy. There has never been such chaos before. Kherson region has buried Putin's army. The Russians were simply wiped out, mass desertion, and heaps of destroyed enemy equipment. Right now, the AFU are doing the unbelievable. These images are blowing up the internet. Putin's plan is falling apart. The Russian offensive is stuck. A hellish surprise from the AFU, the trap is snapping shut. A revolutionary turn of events. France is making a powerful investment in Ukrainian weaponry. This will finish off Russia. Paris has done the unexpected. Shock, America's trump card. Trump is fighting for Putin. The US will do this for Ukraine. This will force the Kremlin to capitulate. The information space has exploded. A complete turnaround in the course of the war. And right now, Ukraine and the US are launching a super weapon, an analog of the Shaheds, that will change the course of the war. All this and more in our episode of Hotspot. Shock. Bashkortostan has erupted. A region where thousands have died in the war against Ukraine is rising up against the Kremlin. A challenge has been thrown at Putin. People are taking to the streets. Resistance is gaining momentum. See what's happening in the heart of Russia coming up next.
Bashkortostan has become a source of cannon fodder for the Kremlin. The Russian elite sends Bashkirs to the front without caring about the losses. As a result, Bashkortostan leads in the number of deaths in the so-called special military operation.
The mighty Russian Empire will soon cease to exist entirely. And then, our diverse peoples will finally gain the long-awaited and true freedom. Everything is being decided right now, at this very moment. The crucial time has indeed come to act decisively. Do not stay silent. Rise up and bravely fight for your cherished independence, ensuring freedom for all oppressed peoples everywhere.
This is an address from the soldiers of the Bashkort Company. The unit is fighting on Ukraine's side as part of the International Legion, while in Russia itself, the company has been designated a terrorist organization. The company's symbol is a flag in the national colors of Bashkortostan, but in a different order, as on the old flag from the time of the Bashkirs' struggle for independence in 1917 to 1919. A crescent in the center completes the design. The Bashkirs are helping Ukraine defend its independence and dream that this very independence will come to their own home as well.
The Republic has its own oil, gold, copper and industry, and Moscow is sucking all of it away for itself. But the Bashkors themselves are rather poor. And do we live in poverty? They take everything away. All of this should be ours. They're the ones who can't live without us. They won't be able to manage without us. We will succeed.
But the Bashkir struggle is taking place not only at the front, but also behind the lines. The underground movement in Bashkortostan has been active since 2022, and it is overseen by that very same Bashkort Company.
There are dedicated activists, individuals who, under our careful guidance and direction, are diligently working with unwavering commitment for the greater good and prosperity of their beloved homeland, that is to say, for the Republic of Bashkortostan. And honestly, sometimes I wonder, it's hard to say who's in greater danger, us here fighting in Ukraine on the battlefield at the front with weapons in our hands, or the civilians back there carrying out certain tasks when literally anyone around them could be an enemy.
Because of the enormous risk, all operations of the Bashkir underground remain secret. But sometimes footage of the struggle does appear online, like for example the burning of the Russian Empire flag in January of this year. And from time to time, symbols appear on the streets of Bashkortostan that are hard to miss. For example, large transformer substations sometimes unfortunately catch fire by accident, causing significant damage.
Arson of critical transformer substations, and also workshops of various enterprises that actively work for the defense industry. After that, we received confirmed information that all work there completely stopped, and for a very significant and extended period of time. We also successfully conducted an operation to strategically mine a crucial bridge.
The underground does a lot of work, but carefully. Many operations will only become known years later, and some the world will never know about. But every operation, even the smallest, is a step toward the freedom of Bashkortostan. and they will achieve it.
Urgent news from the front. The Russians are pushing into Dnipropetrovsk region, but the Ukrainian armed forces are wiping them out. The fiery trap is closing. The enemy's offensive has stalled. The pace has dropped tenfold. The Kremlin is in shock. Putin's plans are falling apart. Watch all the hottest details and footage from the front lines right now. Russia is returning to mechanized assaults. Massive use of armored vehicles has been recorded on several sections of the front, most notably in the Pokrovsk area. The Ukrainian armed forces have decapitated an entire enemy battalion by striking their command post. Meanwhile, the Russians are still unsuccessfully trying to break through to their own forces near Dobropilya, suffering enormous losses in the process. Everything happening on the front today, watch it right now. Military analysts on both sides of the front report that Russia has decided to return to the tactic of mechanized breakthroughs. In the past week alone, 3 such cases have already been recorded, and each time the Russian column was destroyed and the infantry failed to secure a foothold. The latest attempt was no exception.
The Russians were detected and kept under surveillance, as reported in the channel, while strikes were simultaneously carried out on their equipment 20 kilometers from the front line. Visually, the columns didn't even reach the Ukrainian positions.
At the same time, the occupiers tried to take advantage of the weather conditions near Pokrovsk. Given the rain and fog, it's now harder for both sides to operate drones. And so, Russia decided to use this time to attempt a breakthrough with special equipment. Notably, the column was destroyed and the surviving infantry scattered to the outskirts, after which our troops on the front line cleared them out.
Just now, literally for the past day, they've been trying to break into Pokrovsk itself. They even tried to show that they had made some advances somewhere, but we neutralized them. There have already been a full 18 hours of clearing operations across all sectors. The attempt in the Kirovohrad direction also was unsuccessful, even though several units moved in there, so to speak, trying to attack from different sides, and already reporting that there are some initial successes. So we can see that we are very effectively destroying all these directions.
At the same time, a column of armored vehicles tried to break through a bit north of Pokrovsk towards Dobropilya. Russian units are still surrounded there. And in order not to lose these mini bridgeheads, they are still trying to send reinforcements to them. Russia made another push towards the village of Shakov. Spoiler, the vehicles never made it to the settlement.
Shakov is so important because a road runs through it that could theoretically be used to supply the Russian troops trapped in the Dobropilya pocket. But everything became focused on Vladimirovka, which turned into a kill zone for Russian armored groups. As a result, the enemy, that is Russia, concentrated large forces in a very limited area. That's why the defense forces were firing at the Russians with everything they had: drones, artillery, and GMLRs.
At the same time, despite already having 3 failed attempts to break through with vehicles, analysts believe the Russians are unlikely to change this tactic. The main reason is the Russian command, which is directing the offensive in the Donetsk region.
Let us recall that the Russian group is commanded by none other than the legendary Sukrab Akhmedov. If the general was recklessly sending columns to their doom near Vuhledar a couple of years ago, as reported by the Z channel 2 majors, and no action was taken against him, then it is highly likely that he will just as thoughtlessly send columns into new offensive sectors. 2 majors writes.
Near Kupiansk in the Kharkiv region, the situation has managed to stabilize somewhat. Sabotage groups are currently unable to infiltrate the city from the northwestern outskirts. But in southern Ukraine, on the contrary, the situation is escalating. The enemy has carried out a regrouping there and is amassing forces near Kherson, according to the command.
They are indeed concentrating a certain number of assault groups in the Oleshki area in order to continue their offensive. And let's say more search and strike actions near the Antonovsky Islands. We have this information. In addition, the enemy is trying to improve the engineering and fortification of their positions where they are currently entrenched. That is, on the left bank, he is no longer focused on taking the island part, although he hasn't given up on it and constantly sends groups to try to secure those positions. But overall, he is more focused on holding his ground and preventing the Ukrainian defense forces from carrying out their active and effective operations.
At the same time, the Ukrainian defense forces managed to strike not only at columns of equipment but also at enemy personnel. For example, recently, Z military correspondents confirmed information from the Ukrainian armed forces that the General Staff had released a few days earlier. Ukrainian aviation carried out a targeted strike on enemy concentrations in the Zaporizhzhia direction and destroyed the headquarters of the occupying forces advancing there.
Ukrainian aviation smashed concentrations of Russian troops at 3 locations at once and destroyed the headquarters of Russia's 108th Battalion. This last point has been confirmed by the Z chauvinists themselves.
Given the effectiveness of the defense forces lately, which includes the daily destruction of tanks, armored fighting vehicles, and artillery, as well as the elimination of more than 1,000 Russians just in the past day, even at the cost of such losses, the enemy has not managed to achieve any significant success on any section of the front since the beginning of autumn.
Today marks the autumn-winter phase of this same offensive. However, the Russians have not achieved even operational tactical successes as of today. Even though the forces committed, specifically the infantry component, on all these fronts are just an insane number of troops, in many places outnumbering our assault units and infantry by several times. Yet today we see the result.
Shock. Paris has struck at Putin. A revolutionary turn. Mega weapons are already on their way to Kyiv. This is not a rehearsal, this is the beginning of a new era. France is investing in the production of Ukrainian weapons and preparing a strike that could open the door to the collapse of the Kremlin. All the sensational details are coming up next.
France is an ally of Ukraine in the fight against the Russian invaders. The country is manufacturing drones and air defense systems for the needs of the armed forces of Ukraine. As Defense Minister Rustem Umerov emphasized, our country has combat experience while France has a powerful industry. Accordingly, this ensures a mutually beneficial partnership for both sides.
There is no open data yet because what is known is the cooperation on the Scalp missiles, for example, which are produced jointly, well, in the British version, that's Storm Shadow, and the Caesars, which France supplies. Is there significant interest in Ukraine? Of course, there absolutely is, because Ukraine possesses not only highly specific and advanced technologies that genuinely make it possible to effectively wage next-generation warfare, but also innovative tactics of their practical use, invaluable experience gained through real-world application, and millions of crucial records, for example, those pertaining to sophisticated artificial intelligence, all of which collectively allow this powerful capability to be utilized most effectively on the modern battlefield. Of course, the French are very interested in this, just like any other country that cooperates with Ukraine.
It was the French, together with the British, who came up with the idea to send peacekeepers to Ukraine in order to provide our country with security guarantees.
Foreign Minister Sikorsky stated very clearly, but what kind of security guarantees are you talking about? Security guarantees mean you have to clearly state whether you are ready to shoot at Russians. If you are ready to shoot at Russians, then you should be doing it right now, because Russia has already attacked Ukraine.
To be honest, since the beginning of the full-scale invasion, France did not immediately support Ukraine.
Better. Back then, they came together with Scholz and Draghi, essentially trying to persuade Ukraine to surrender on Russia's terms. But when Zelensky took them to Bucha and showed them what had happened there, they realized that there was nothing more they could do.
In the summer of 2025, the Ukrainian Minister of Defense announced the creation of a new international initiative for joint weapons production on the territory of the countries participating in the Ukraine Defense Contact Group.
Let's see how it will be implemented, and let's look at the specifics. I think information about joint weapons production will start to appear. Basically, Ukraine is now actively scaling up production in European Union countries, primarily in Denmark, with which we have developed fruitful relations regarding investments in Ukrainian defense.
The initiative provides for the creation of licensed production of Ukrainian weapons in partner countries in order to meet the urgent needs of Ukraine's defense forces. In 2024, the French and Ukrainian sides signed an agreement to launch the production of ammunition under license from CNDS France Nexter. Thus, France is not only transferring old weaponry for Ukraine's defense, but has also established cooperation between its manufacturers and the Ukrainian armed forces for fundamental defense collaboration and the exchange of wartime experience.
Shock. The front has exploded. Kherson region has become the grave of the Russian army. The occupiers are fleeing en masse. This has never happened before. The Ukrainian armed forces have trapped the enemy. An unprecedented level of desertion from the front is shocking. What is behind this chaos, and what does it mean for Putin's army? All the sensational details are coming up next.
A wave of desertion has swept over the Russian army. In the fourth year of the war, no one except the bunker crowd is looking for or believes in either Putin or Kremlin propaganda that romanticizes the front.
Stagnation. People want action,
Instead, Russian soldiers are looking for any way to escape as far as possible from the Kremlin's activities in Ukraine. Thus, our partisans from the ATS movement report a mass exodus of servicemen in the Kherson direction.
Brutal treatment by commanders, senseless assaults, and the lack of rotation are forcing soldiers to abandon their positions.
They decided to fix the situation in Putin's army in the typical Russian way. Instead of improving service conditions, they tightened control over the exhausted and half-starved contract soldiers, setting up reinforced checkpoints and patrols in the frontline areas. The military police are conducting thorough document checks and searches in pursuit of deserters.
Agents from among the local residents report that deserters often seize residential houses, and if discovered, they use weapons.
Moreover, Russian military deserters have increasingly started taking innocent hostages with them.
Right now, I am in a store with hostages. I have a live F1 grenade in my hand. I just want to be taken to the prosecutor's office. I will surrender at the prosecutor's office.
The reason this Russian soldier was driven to such a radical step was the service conditions, the blatantly careless attitude of the command toward the lives of the personnel, and the ongoing abuse within the unit.
I am Konstantinov Sergei Sergeyevich, a private of the 60th Separate Motorized Rifle Brigade, 9th Company, 3rd Battalion. I was forced to leave the front line while wounded, to walk away on my own because my commander threatened to tie me to a tree overnight so that the birds would kill me, or to shoot me, since I refused to carry out a combat mission while wounded.
Punishment in the form of tying someone to a tree in the open is, in general, a favorite disciplinary tactic among Russians on the front line. Instead of eliminating their own contract soldiers themselves, the command simply puts the penal troops in a visible spot, where Ukrainian FPV drones take them out within hours.
I am a serviceman of the 25th Combined Arms Army, 67th Division, 36th Assault Regiment. For 3 days now, we've been handcuffed to a tree, without food, without water, without anything. They don't take us anywhere to use the toilet. That's how things are.
Not everyone manages to survive even a single day in such conditions. But surviving the much more sophisticated and brutal punishments in the Russian army is significantly harder, says another disillusioned deserter named Sergei. The 34-year-old Russian soldier still truly can't quite believe that he actually managed to successfully escape from the perilous front lines.
We're going all in. That's it. My life and freedom are literally at stake. As long as the war goes on, well, they'll just erase me. There won't even be a trial.
And all because the Russian electrician mobilized into the army refused to take up arms and go kill Ukrainians.
My crime is simply that I didn't want to shoot at people, that's all. The military police showed up. I told them to fuck off, basically. Just told them to fuck off, that's it. They took me to Zaitsevo and, well, they electrocuted me.
It's a device for charging batteries, where you can adjust the voltage and amperage, basically. One clamp like a crocodile clip to my earlobe, the other to my finger, and then they started, basically. What?
Why did you give in? What did they want?
They didn't want anything. They just electrocuted me, poured cold water on me. For an hour and a half, 2 hours, with a hose. For no reason. Procedures. Special effects.
But no matter how much Russian army soldiers are intimidated in basements by their own generals, the will to live prevails. Especially since, in the case of desertion, the chances of survival are much higher than in yet another meat grinder assault. Catastrophic losses at the front are yet another reason for the mass exodus from the front lines.
Why? Because it's one failure after another there. Every third wounded soldier doesn't make it to evacuation. There are major problems there. There, the so-called offensive actions have slowed down by exactly 2 to 3 times as reported by American analytical centers. It's a failure there.
Military analysts say that recently, being wounded at the front for Russian soldiers is practically equivalent to being killed. Russian medics simply leave their own wounded to die at their positions. Partisans in the Russian rear also report that the situation with evacuating the wounded is simply catastrophic. The command of some units deliberately does not send transport or evacuation teams for wounded soldiers, condemning them to a long and agonizing death.
Due to the lack of vehicles and evacuation orders, the occupiers die within the first day after being wounded. Many of them could have survived if they had received timely medical assistance. Officers of these units openly state that it is easier to find new people than to risk their equipment. This is direct evidence that the Russian Army Command considers its soldiers expendable.
But this expendable material also tends to run out, just like the money to maintain it. The Kremlin's treasury is empty. There is nothing left for the aggressor country to pay endless death benefits and, more importantly, bonuses for signing contracts with the Ministry of Defense. As a result, the authorities in at least 8 regions of Russia have reduced one-time payments several times over, in Taganrog, Chuvashia, and the Samara region. There, the amount of 3 or 2 million has been cut down to just 800,000 rubles.
This is an avalanche that has started. Putin has no money. Putin no longer has the ability to directly give money and maintain what is now a mercenary army.
No money means no fools willing to die at the front, analysts explain. The draft offices across the border have long been unable to meet the Kremlin's targets. No tricks work anymore.
That's crony capitalism for you, siphoning off the cash. So what's the formula now? They profit from the war, and the population in the end loses its initiative, and
along with it, the desire to go to the front lines disappears as well. But the desire to get away from that very front, and as quickly as possible, no matter the cost, just keeps growing. Which means that the Russian army will soon face a much larger wave of desertion.
Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism, and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine today. Join us now.
Sensational news. Ukraine and the USA are launching a super weapon. The world is in shock. The new system is not just an analog of the Shaheds, but a completely different level of destructive efficiency. This invention could turn the tide of the war. The enemy is already in a panic. The commander is racking his brain over how to deal with this. How will this change the front lines and what consequences await the Kremlin? Watch for all the details.
The Ukrainian Shahed has reached a new level. Now the drone is equipped with advanced Western guidance and control systems, and production will be established both in the USA and in Europe.
It will soon go into mass production in Ukraine, the United States of America, and Germany. The press is reporting on this. The American company Otelian, together with a Ukrainian company, has successfully tested the long-range kamikaze drone Artemis LM-20. The drone is equipped with an artificial intelligence system, self-guidance, and can hit targets at a distance of up to 1,600 kilometers.
At the same time, the warhead weighs 45 kilograms, which is more than enough to destroy most enemy military targets, equipment, and assets our military adds.
The key point here is that it uses artificial intelligence, and frankly speaking, the price is quite reasonable, to put it mildly. And if the tactical and technical specifications, such as speed and flight altitude, are met, and as I understand it, they are met. These factors have already been studied and tested, so of course things will become a bit easier for us.
It is also known that the main feature of Artemis is its navigation and targeting system based on the Skynote N onboard computer from the American company Otelian. As noted, it is this system that allows the drone to target and strike even when satellite navigation is disrupted, and ensures high accuracy in the final stage of flight.
The enemy's electronic warfare systems are mainly used to jam the GPS signal. In other words, roughly speaking, that's what helps with more precise targeting. If we're talking, for example, about control channels, then yes, they do have certain systems that, for instance, can limit the capabilities of the control channels of piloted drones. We're talking about a system that, to a greater extent, performs automatic flight thanks to, for example, the onboard equipment it carries. So here we are talking about the crucial fact that, thanks to its remarkable capabilities, this advanced system can effectively bypass the enemy's sophisticated electronic warfare defenses and precisely hit the intended target with only a minimal margin of error. Again, this is due to the visual guidance system installed directly on this UAV.
At the same time, the developers at the company have already stated that the drone has been tested on the battlefield. Both the Ukrainian side and its manufacturing partners have already recognized this.
This drone was developed together with an unnamed Ukrainian company for security reasons, and it has already undergone full-scale testing, which, according to the company's statement, included ground launch, navigation with and without GPS, long-range transit, and ground activation.
It is worth noting that the Artemis ALM-20 also features a nose camera, additional antennas, and apparently an electric engine, which experts point out is a rather unusual solution. This is done in order to achieve high results with smaller production scales by ensuring more precise targeting. After all, the camera at the final stage of the UAV's operation will allow it to strike almost without missing, including bypassing possible anti-drone defenses.
First and foremost, they will be intended for and used to destroy those targets that affect the military power of the terrorist state and its ability to conduct combat operations in Ukraine.
At the same time, joint production with the United States is far from the only international initiative of the Ukrainian defense industry. Most often, Western partners are willing to invest specifically in drones. Denmark became a pioneer in the field of joint defense production with Ukraine and was the first to invest initially in enterprises within Ukraine, and now has allocated more than 67 million euros to establish Ukrainian defense enterprises on Danish territory. Finland was also one of the first to embark on joint production with Ukraine. Back in November 2024, the Finnish defense consortium Summa Defense established a drone manufacturing enterprise in Finland in partnership with 4 Ukrainian companies. The United Kingdom has also focused on unmanned aerial vehicles. A few months ago, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer announced plans to launch joint production on British soil.
We are currently working out the details in decisions regarding joint weapons production with our partners. These are serious decisions with those who are providing the most assistance. Specific projects mean tangible benefits for our defense. In the future, there will also be production facilities localized in Ukraine, facilities that help protect our skies. I want to thank our partners for their interest in working with Ukraine and with our industry.
At the same time, the EU has allocated 1.5 billion euros for a defense plan and cooperation with Ukraine, according to Bloomberg. The main goal of the program is to optimize the procurement and production of weapons, including joint efforts with Ukraine. So it seems that the number of joint Ukrainian Western developments in the arsenal of the armed forces of Ukraine will significantly increase soon.
At this very moment, Trump has shaken up the information space. The US leader has taken on Putin. The states are shifting a secret strike from Hamas to Ukraine. This could bring the Kremlin to its knees, a plan that Moscow suspects nothing about. The United States has pulled a super Trump card out of its sleeve. How does Washington plan to thwart Putin's plans? All the shocking details in the report.
Peace through force. That is exactly how Trump's peace plan to end the war in Gaza is being described. The American president has nevertheless managed to achieve peace in the Middle East. And although there is still much work to be done and Hamas is not going to surrender so easily, this was Trump's triumph. Now he announces that the US will focus on resolving the war in Ukraine.
Trump doesn't want to waste any time. He is now inspired and wants to move forward. He is determined to achieve new peacekeeping feats. God willing.
So what is the essence of the Trump doctrine? Pressure worked on Hamas. It is precisely this lesson, as the Wall Street Journal writes, that Trump needs to take away from the Middle East settlement. The lesson about the necessity of pressure.
To stop the fighting in the Gaza Strip, Trump put pressure on Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, while Qatar, Egypt, and Turkey, in turn, influenced Hamas by threatening to limit diplomatic support for the group. At the same time, Israel's military operation in the Gaza Strip continued.
There has not yet been similar pressure on Russia from Trump. And although the US imposed high tariffs on India, a trading partner of Moscow, no new sanctions were introduced against Russia. But now experts are optimistic.
This inspires him to undertake peacekeeping feats. It's obvious. He has already announced that he will also work on ending the war between Russia and Ukraine. After all, both the war in the Gaza Strip and the Russia-Ukraine war are issues directly tied to Trump's political reputation. And here there is a positive momentum that can be used. And the fact that this inspires Trump is obvious.
Western media also believe that after an agreement between Israel and Hamas, Trump may increase pressure on Russia. A good sign is also Trump's own statements about his intentions to tackle the Russia-Ukraine war, and also the meeting between the Ukrainian and American leaders, which is scheduled to take place on October 17th in Washington.
Zelensky is flying to the States. Both Zelensky and Trump have already confirmed it, and our team has flown out to prepare the visit. But they aren't saying what will happen. But I'll say right away, these are peace talks, an important meeting, not just technical issues, not just about money or tomahawks. This is part of the peace agreements. Tomahawks are something that could bring peace faster, that could bring Russia to the negotiating table.
And in this case, Trump's peace plan to end the war in Gaza could become the necessary precedent that helps end the war in Ukraine. At least in part, Europe is hoping that Trump will use the tactics applied in Gaza to stop Russia's aggression.
This gives Trump enormous opportunities to resolve other major conflicts. Now he has established himself as an effective arbiter and peacemaker.
To resolve the Russia-Ukraine issue, Trump may involve the president of Turkey. According to the American president, Erdogan is respected both in Ukraine and in Russia.
People respect him, and he is my friend. You understand why I get along with the strong, but not with the weak.
Trump says that Erdogan can help us achieve peace in the world. Trump likes Erdogan. And overall, Erdogan is a politician who appeals to Trump in terms of his behavior and the way he has built a power vertical. And Erdogan resolved the issue in Syria. Right now, the Syrian dictator and murderer is reportedly sitting in Moscow playing Sony PlayStation, according to media outlets and Telegram channels. In fact, Syria is now governed by those who fought on the side of the rebels. And this criminal was driven out and Russia lost its influence. Erdogan can help here.
But there is a significant difference between the war between Hamas and Israel and the Russian-Ukrainian war, the so-called China factor. The Middle Kingdom has become an important economic and political partner for Russia, and this could work both in its favor or against it. If Trump can get Beijing to support the negotiations, then China could become a key element in persuading Putin towards peace.
That's all for now, but for more breaking news from the front, watch our next episode. To watch the full video, follow the link in our profile header to our YouTube channel and subscribe to always stay up to date with the most important news.